When Steve Jobs returned, Apple had lost more than $1 billion in a year and was running out of excuses. The famous comeback did not begin with an iPhone, an iPod, or one perfect keynote. It began with a much less glamorous move: deleting things. By 1997, Apple was in real trouble. The Macintosh still had loyal users, especially in education and creative work, but the company had lost direction. Its product names looked like someone had dropped a box of numbers down a staircase. Performas, Power Macs, printers, servers, handheld devices, and overlapping projects competed for money and attention. The clone program added another knot. Apple had licensed the Macintosh operating system to other computer makers, hoping more compatible machines would grow the platform. Some clone makers then competed directly with Apple's own profitable hardware, while Apple still carried much of the software development cost. More Mac-shaped boxes did not automatically mean a healthier Apple. Apple's fiscal 1997 annual report recorded a net loss of more than $1 billion. Sales had fallen sharply from 2 years earlier. This was not a company waiting for one clever advertisement. It was a company trying to stop the machinery from shaking apart. Jobs did not march back in as the obvious conquering hero. Apple bought NeXT, the computer company he had built after leaving Apple, because Apple needed a modern operating system foundation. The deal carried NeXT technology and Jobs through the same door. He arrived first as an advisor. After chief executive Gil Amelio left, Jobs became interim chief executive. That title sounded temporary, the decisions did not. Jobs started asking basic questions. Which products mattered? Who were they for? Why should a customer choose one Mac instead of another? If the answers required a poster-sized chart, the product line was not helping the customer. It was transferring Apple's confusion to the store shelf. The response was a 2x2 grid. One side separated consumer and professional buyers. The other separated desktop and portable computers. 4 boxes, 4 main products. Apple could put a strong team on each one, update them faster, and make every product's job obvious. The grid also made accountability hard to dodge. If Apple planned one consumer desktop, that machine could not hide behind 6 similar models when it was late, expensive, or confusing. Every missing decision became visible. A child could understand the chart, which meant an executive could no longer use complexity as camouflage. The grid became business folklore because it is easy to draw. The hard part was everything the marker line crossed out. Projects had employees, budgets, internal supporters, and customers. Some were useful, some were loved. Cutting them meant admitting that effort already spent would not decide the future. Jobs ended or reduced products that did not fit the new focus, including the Newton handheld line. Apple also moved away from licensing the Mac operating system to clone makers because clones could take sales without strengthening the whole Apple business. Here the comeback gets less comfortable than the legend. Focus sounds elegant after it works. During the cut, it feels like loss. Jobs could be harsh, and the simplification cost people jobs. A cleaner product chart does not erase the human cost of restructuring. But Apple needed one answer to a brutal question. What can this company do unusually well? The answer was not make every kind of computer. Apple chose to control a smaller set of products from hardware through software. NeXT software gave the company a technical path toward a modern operating system. The Mac brand still had devoted users. Apple's industrial design team, including Jony Ive, could make the physical machine part of the experience rather than a beige container around components. The company also needed time. In August 1997, Apple and Microsoft announced an agreement that settled disputes, kept Microsoft Office development on the Mac, and included a $150 million purchase of non-voting Apple stock by Microsoft. The cash helped. The signal may have helped more. A computer platform is not useful if important software makers abandon it. Seeing Bill Gates appear by satellite at Macworld made some Apple fans furious. Jobs asked the audience to move beyond the idea that Microsoft had to lose for Apple to win. Apple needed the Mac ecosystem to remain credible more than it needed a theatrical enemy. The agreement also included a broad patent cross-license and made Internet Explorer the default Mac browser for a period. It was not a warm reunion. It was a practical settlement between two companies with overlapping interests. Apple bought breathing room, Microsoft kept an important software market, and ended distracting disputes. At the same time, Apple simplified how it sold. It launched an online store and pushed a build-to-order approach. Customers could choose a machine without navigating a maze of nearly identical models. Behind the scenes, the company tightened operations and reduced the burden of unsold inventory. Focus was becoming more than a slide. It was changing what Apple designed, stocked, marketed, and supported. NeXT helped in a less glamorous way too. The acquisition brought WebObjects into Apple's software portfolio, while Apple launched its online store in November 1997. Apple had not merely purchased Jobs' return ticket. It had purchased software, engineers, and tools that could be used while the turnaround was still fragile. Then came the product that made the strategy visible. The iMac arrived in 1998 as the consumer desktop square in that four-part grid. It was an all-in-one machine with a translucent blue shell, a handle, and a design that looked almost cheerful beside the gray boxes surrounding it. Apple pitched it around a simple consumer job, getting onto the internet quickly. It also removed familiar technology. There was no floppy disk drive. Apple used newer connections such as USB. That annoyed people who had drawers full of old disks and accessories, but this was the same logic as the product cuts. Apple was choosing a direction and accepting that the decision would make some customers angry. The translucent enclosure did another job before anyone read a specification sheet. It announced that this Apple was different from the one that had produced the confusing beige catalog. The handle made the machine look approachable, even though it was not truly portable. Design became a shortcut to the strategy. The iMac was not a miracle dropped onto a helpless company. Several repairs were already lining up behind it. The product had a clear audience. The software and hardware came from one company. You could recognize it from across a store. The message fit in one breath. Operations could support it. Developers had a reason to keep paying attention. Apple reported selling about 800,000 iMacs in the first 139 days. For fiscal 1998, the company reported a profit after 3 consecutive annual losses. Those numbers did not prove the entire future. They proved that the patient could stand up. That distinction matters. The return story is often told backward from the iPhone, as if Jobs walked into Apple already carrying the next decade in his pocket. He did not. Apple first had to survive long enough to build that decade. The early turnaround created a sequence. Stop the losses, clarify the products, repair relationships with software developers, make one consumer machine people could instantly recognize, improve the operating system, strengthen operations. Only then did Apple have the base for the iPod, the retail stores, the iPhone, and everything that made the later story look inevitable. It was not inevitable. The iMac could have failed. Microsoft could have reduced support. The operating system transition could have gone badly. Cutting products could have left Apple smaller without making it stronger. Focus is not a magic spell. It raises the cost of being wrong because fewer bets remain. Jobs' advantage was not simply taste, charisma, or the ability to command a stage. It was his willingness to force trade-offs into the open. A company can claim that every project is important. Its budget, calendar, and best people reveal otherwise. The 2x2 grid made Apple choose before the market chose for it. Most business turnarounds get described with language that could fit a bank, a bakery, or a tractor company. Innovate, execute, delight customers. Apple's plan could be sketched on a whiteboard. Consumer or professional, desktop or portable. If a product did not have a clear square, someone had to explain why it existed. That simplicity reached the customer. You did not need to understand Apple's internal structure. You only needed to recognize which machine was meant for you. The comeback also changed what saving Apple meant. Microsoft did not save it alone. The iMac did not save it alone. Jobs did not save it alone. The turnaround came from a set of connected decisions: acquiring NeXT, restoring a usable software path, reducing the product line, keeping key applications on the Mac, tightening operations, backing a distinctive design team, and giving each product a job. The visible machine was colorful. The strategy behind it was mostly subtraction. That may be the most useful part of the story. When a company is struggling, adding projects feels active. More features, more markets, more partnerships, more chances, but every addition divides attention. Apple improved by deciding which promises it could keep and abandoning many it could not. So which part of Apple's return mattered most? The four-product focus, the Knee XD technology, the Microsoft deal, or the iMac that made the change visible? Pick one in the comments. The colorful computer got the photographs, but the comeback began with a very crowded list and the nerve to make it shorter.